Good morning, everybody. It is day 138 of Spiritual Healthcare. Welcome, everyone, and I hope you guys had a fantastic week this week. It's been a busy world out there, I guess, and I hope everybody in Texas is doing okay. I know you guys have had some just insane cold weather that you guys aren't used to, and here in Alberta it's super normal, but in Texas not so much. So. I totally get it. So good morning, welcome everybody. Good morning, Ed. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Laura. It's good to see you guys. Congrats to Richard, if he's there, about his books. I'm like super excited about his Warhammer opportunity. I think that's so cool. So welcome everybody. It is good to see you, and I think today we've got some pretty cool questions that have turned up over the last little while, and one about negative entities and children, as well as one about drugs and drug interaction and paranormal experiences, which it's a hot topic right now. It's a really hot topic in the field of parapsychology. So we're gonna delve down the rabbit hole a little bit into both. I'm going to throw my opinions out there, and we're going to talk about the research behind it and all sorts of stuff. So this should be good. This should be a good morning. I hope you guys, as they had a really great week. It's been a little crazy weather-wise. We finally got rid of the Arctic vortex in Alberta, and now you have it. Sorry, from Canada. It didn't start with us, though. It really didn't start with us. It started with further north than even us. But I hope everybody in Texas is doing okay, and hopefully this can start to get cleaned up in the next little while here. But so today on Spiritual Healthcare, everybody, good morning. Everybody that's coming in, good morning, good morning, good morning. And it's good to see everyone. I've been getting lots and lots of questions coming in over the last little bit. It's been fantastic. The more you guys send in, the better this gets, because it really does. It fuels everything that we do here. So it's a big deal. And yeah, it makes all the difference in the world. There's not been too much going on here in the realm of shows and filming and stuff like that, because needless to say, everything for the most part is still closed down in terms of filming and production in the TV show world. I had a couple of people asking when the new season of Haunted Hospitals was coming out. I don't know. I don't know. We get told nothing, okay? Like nothing. We literally don't, we have no idea what the networks are doing. Like half the time, the production company doesn't know what the networks are doing. We film in Toronto when we film Haunted Hospitals, and Toronto is like closed. It is closed for business. So Richard and I both filmed the season, and I think Chris did as well. Chris Brewer. We filmed back in September, and we, at least our bits and whatnot, I don't know what they've done with the recreations, but everything's kind of been just halted because everything's been shut down. So I'm hoping that the third season is going to be out soon, because the cases are really cool, and I think you guys are going to really dig it once you see it. So hang in there. The next season will be coming out. Good morning, Marge. Good morning to Des. Good morning, everybody I haven't said hello to yet. It's good to see you guys, and good to be here for another week of this. And as I say, some really cool questions today, both actually from Dan. So hey, Dan. I wanted to grab a couple of these right off the bat, because as I say, I think they're really interesting. So one of the first questions, we're going to delve into this on the spirit side of this first, which was, are there any known cases where children's spirits may actually scratch or hurt someone? The story goes that a child often visited a living child at one point, scratched the living child. His first impression was that it was not a child spirit, and he says he's not sure what to make of the scratch as of yet. So this is a great theory, or a great question, because I think this screws up a lot of investigators, and it's something that I've told parents over the years to really watch for as well, because usually the people that end up with this type of haunting are usually struggling with something to do with either a need that is not being fulfilled, like a caregiving need that's not being fulfilled, people who have either lost a child or are disconnected from their own kids, and people who are sort of seeking that role, because we have to remember that when we get a negative entity, these aren't people, okay? So when we're talking about negative entities, we're not talking about people or human spirits or anything like that. We're talking about a different type of phenomenon. And just to get into that a little bit, it's these entities tend to be very territorial. They tend to be very animalistic. They can be very manipulative, and they will present on occasion certain personality types. One of their techniques is that they will present as something non-threatening. I've actually got a client in the south side of the city here where the entity will present itself as one of their dogs. It will present as a third dog that they see kind of running around the house, but the dog doesn't look right. The dog's got a weird face. It's not quite right. It was almost like the energy was trying to mirror what it was seeing, because the dogs were getting positive attention, and they discovered that, hey, wait a minute, this is an area which I can attract attention and whatnot and get paid attention to. So it's really, really interesting. So when we get these sort of negative entities that manifest as kids, there's of course that famous photo from the Amityville case where you see the child or the boy kind of leaning in from a bedroom, and the eyes are missing or glowing or whatever, and it's like, so you get these features that are kind of there, but they're not quite right. So anyway, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because oftentimes when we get these situations where we've got a child spirit, or what you believe is a child spirit that's attacking and it's biting and it's starting fires and all of that kind of thing, you really just have to stop and ask yourself, is this something that would actually happen? It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Somebody passing away, moving over to, pure source energy, pure positive, good things, and then they're turning around and being, vicious and vengeful and all of that kind of thing. That just doesn't line up. So when you get a situation like this, you're not dealing with a child spirit. You're dealing with something that is different. It's a different sort of subspecies, I guess. And it can really screw people up. So a really good case that reflects this is a case known as the Pikmin case, and it was a family by the name of Deborah Pikmin and her husband. And what happened was that they ended up starting to see this little spirit named that it called itself Sally. And Sally was this cute little girl with these fluffy pigtails and curly hair, and she was just adorable, except all of a sudden their kitchen would burst into flames, and it had an absolute hate on for her husband. Hated this guy. And usually when that happens, you've just got a dynamic where the entity is being aggressive towards one person because it's trying to isolate the other. So he was coming out with bleeding scratches and bite marks, and I mean the guy was an absolute disaster, and they caught it all on film. And it was all recorded. The investigators were very diligent about recording these bite marks and scratches and whatever coming up, and they were horrible welts. It was carving. I think it was carving words into his arms and letters, and also it was terrible. And they were shooting this. So the medium at the time that came in, his name was Peter James, very famous fellow, and has passed away since. But he had come in, and immediately when he started to go into this house, the imagery that he kept getting bombarded with was Sally. It was this little girl, Sally, Sally, Sally. And Sally had a sob story, because they always have a backstory. And Sally's sob story was that, she'd missed her parents, and she had nobody, and very much designed to draw sympathy, but it really is a bluff as it turns around and continues to attack. Gareth is asking, is that the case where they caught it on film, the scratch forming on this fellow? Yeah, absolutely. And it happened quite a number of times. So they ended up basically in this battle with this entity that called itself Sally. And when they had their child, because eventually they had a baby in the house, the entity took some interest in the baby as well. And it would start to manifest things in the baby's room. So it would manifest toys. It would put things in their crib. It would all sorts of really things you wouldn't want as a parent, right? Where it's like this thing's starting to take interest in the child. It's not a good thing. It was pretty bad. At some point, I believe the entity killed their cat as well. It threw the cat in the dryer and turned the dryer on. So it just really, really aggressive behavior, and everything to kind of separate out and isolate, right? So anyway, but this was a really great example where Peter James, as I say, he walked in and immediately got the bluff identity, got this Sally picture. And what can make these bluff identities really difficult is that oftentimes what they will do is draw on prior information that is within the house. So, for example, there may have been at some point a little girl that looked like that in the house. It will draw on that information to project something. They don't seem to really be able to create new things. They seem to be able to pull on imagery that's already been in existence, like thought forms that have been in existence. It's really interesting, but it's really cool. So anyway, the long answer to a short question from Dan is that, do I think this is something that was a little person? No, I don't. Absolutely. When we get this type of aggression in hauntings, it's not, this isn't pure positive energy trying to teach people a lesson, or this isn't positive a positive spirit that's gotten angry or anything like that. It's something completely different, and we don't know exactly what that phenomenon is. We still don't understand it. What these things are. Of course, every culture has a name for them. Religious sects and things have names for them. They're the Oni, the Jinn, the demons, whatever. Everybody's tried to put a label on it, but nobody really knows exactly what they are. The CIA did an in-depth study years ago called the Gateway Project. And the Gateway Project was actually built around a program by Robert Monroe, which was runs the Monroe Institute, very, very famous institute that works on meditation and transcendental experiences and whatnot. And because they wanted in on how to master the idea of both out-of-body experiences and remote viewing. So it's a really, really interesting project, and they finally released the papers for this, and it was like 2017 or something like that. And it was just fascinating read. If you guys want to take a read of the Gateway Project, you can still participate through the Monroe Institute. And what they discovered was that these entities seem to be most likely thought forms that seem to take on consciousness. They seem to spawn consciousness. And so really, really fascinating. As I say, kind of a rabbit hole, but worth looking into. If you guys want a good read, look up the CIA documents for the Gateway Project, because it's all accessible now for public consumption, and it's really cool. It's really, really cool what they discovered. So the next question I want to grab today was another really great one from Dan, and he's asking about rituals. Why do some people believe alcohol or other mind-altering substance is a good mix in order to experience the paranormal? He said, I think the experience wouldn't be genuine. Or does anything mix well with alcohol? I love this question, Dan. I think this is really, really brilliant, because I think this has come up over the years with the idea of and the research into psychedelics. So it's an area that I know a little bit less on, but enough that I'm going to answer this question. So this is a really interesting phenomenon, because drugs and the paranormal, or substances and the paranormal, has always been something that has been looked at, because people report when they're on, drugs, when they're on this or they're on that, we've had these crazy trips. Is it real? It really seemed real. There seemed to be, so there's been a lot of confusion around it. And J.B. Rhine, who, of course, the founder of the Rhine Institute, worked with Harvard for a good number of years. It was in the 1960s, to take a look at the idea of psychedelics and paranormal phenomena, paranormal experiences. There's also been extensive work on psychedelic-assisted therapy, and there's been more experiences that were recorded during these instances of therapy with psychedelics versus a non-psychedelic session, and I say more with than without, and specifically in the areas of ESP and remote viewing. So that being said, the conclusion sort of around the idea of the psychedelics is the fact that telepathy was recorded more often with MDMA, cannabis, and DXM, where with clairvoyance, psilocybins, LSD, and cannabis were reported more in greater association with those ones. So there's been extensive research done on it. If you guys want more on that specifically, go to the Science Encyclopedia that I talk about. There's paper upon paper upon paper on it. So that being said, when people start to turn to substances, the majority of people are usually not doing it to have a paranormal experience. The majority of people turn outwards to substances or turn outwards to something else because they believe that the something else that's external is going to fix whatever it is that's internal. And sometimes the people who are looking for example, the paranormal side of it, are still in this misconception that it is about altering the outside in order to get the inside to work, to get to where they want to be on a mental level. And the problem with this, especially with things like with alcohol, is that, you know, if you've got a predisposition for alcoholism or anything like that, you are automatically running the risk of diving down that rabbit hole of alcoholism, right? So whenever we're looking to external substances or external things to create the reality that we want, it's not so much that it's, you know, alcohol or drugs or anything like that. It's more the fact that you're now in a belief system that ultimately is not going to serve you, because if you think that that external is going to actually shift that internal to the point where you're going to have exactly what you want, it's going to be a very fruitless end. So when we look at something like paranormal experiences, because it sort of falls into the same category as people who, you know, say, oh, I really, really want to connect with this loved one. I'm still grieving. I'm still upset, or I've still got all this stuff going on, but I want to have this positive experience. The problem with that is the fact that the energy that you are putting out is not to the point where you're not going to sit on the same frequency of the thing that you want. You want a wonderful, positive, joyful experience that's going to be memorable, except you've got a problem because you're not in alignment with that. You're not resonating on that frequency. You've still got all this stuff that you're trying to clean up. You know, if you're turning to outside substances, then you're feeling, you know, out of control, that you can't trust yourself, you can't trust the universe that it's going to manifest, you know, what you want. You know, you're stemming from this place of lack and control, which is not going to end up getting you, you know, what you want. So many investigators, I think, run into this because they want to go in and force the paranormal experience, or you know, they force an encounter or force something that they want to create, and the paranormal just doesn't work like that, and the spirituality in and of itself just doesn't work like that. You know, it really is the complete opposite, where it's about allowing, not forcing, and not trying to jam a round peg into a square hole. You know, it just doesn't work. And when we do that, when we're going upstream, so to speak, we end up in this really huge tug of war where we notice the fact that we don't have it. We notice the fact that it's not working. We notice that it's not there. So because we're noticing it, we then try to fight for it. We try to attack it and push for it and whatever. And immediately we're upstream and we're just energetically going in the wrong direction, just immediately. So when we get things like, you know, alcohol or anything like that, you've got this problem where you're putting this Band-Aid, what they believe a Band-Aid fix, over top of, you know, a situation or vibrations you've got going on that you don't want in the mix of whatever paranormal or any experience that you really want to have. and that stuff, whatever that stuff is that you're muting or you're putting a Band-Aid over, it's gonna bleed. It's just gonna bleed through. It's like turning around and having a leak in your ceiling, and you notice the stains, you notice all the stains that are happening on the ceiling, and you take your paint can and you start to paint over the stains, and a number of days later you're noticing that this water damage is coming through the leak in your wall, right? And it's the same thing with things like alcohol. When you're trying to pad this stuff down, it just doesn't work, and it's gonna bleed through in ways that you don't want. And that's when people start having negative experiences with the paranormal. So you look at situations with things like the Ouija board, because there's so many people that talk about having these bad experiences with the Ouija board. But when you look at where they're coming from and where they're starting from, usually it's grief or lack or, fear or something like that. They've usually got something going on. Then it makes complete sense that what they end up with is somewhere in there, there's a mirror of what you have happening. And that's what I always say is kind of the gift of negative entities in a way, is because they really do illuminate the crap that you've got going on. So it's really hard, and this is what I always tell people when it comes to paranormal experiences, and when you get into the area of substances and things like that, is that if you've got a vision for what you want, and it doesn't have to be anything in the paranormal, it can be usually something outside of that, it's really hard to knock over somebody with a vision. And the people I've never been into the drugs or alcohol and stuff like that, although the majority of my friends when I was in school were very much into that. They loved the partying, they loved the drinking, they loved the drugs, they were like very much into that. But I really do credit my goal setting and what I was able to get through in school. I was like horribly bullied in school, and I really do credit that to the process of having a vision. Because when you've got that vision and something crops up, so you get an experience, say for example, like we talked about these child entities, right? And you get an experience that kind of leans into your world. It is really easy when you've got a vision to turn around and say, wait a minute, that doesn't line up, that doesn't match up with how I want to feel, and to shuck that off to the side and to get rid of it. It's really easy to get roped and pulled from one direction to another if you don't have a vision, if you don't have what it is that you're seeking or what you're looking for. It's really easy to get pulled off in a pile of different directions. So when something comes into your experience, whether it be a negative entity or, alcohol or drugs or anything like that, if you don't have that focus, it's really simple just to get dragged off into the gutter with it. So I think when it comes to paranormal experiences and anything else, it's really sort of getting yourself in attune with who you are, what you want, what your vision is. Does this thing, whatever it is, does this match up? And if it doesn't match up, it's not about turning around and blaming the incident or the phenomenon or the person or whatever it is. It's not about doing that. It's about turning around and saying, okay, wait a minute. This has cropped up into my experience. Nothing asserts itself on me. This is an inclusive universe. Something in me attracted this thing. What is it? And clean it up. And when we learn to do that, and when we start to understand that it's not about that external control, we can start to manage our environment in a different way. It's been interesting with the pandemic and whatever that's been going on, and with so many businesses, especially like the entertainment world and whatnot, a lot of small businesses are just struggling. Production is struggling. It's really brutal. And I think the one thing I know it has made myself do, as well as I think many, many other people. I was out for supper last night with a really good friend of mine, brilliant fashion designer. Her brand is Louis Mayhem, just brilliant. And she's been struggling as well. And we were having this conversation about, okay, what is it that we have to do to be able to focus, to hang on to the vision. And the one thing that we realized was the fact that now what we're watching is people are, because everybody's kind of wearing down, they're losing sight of the vision, and they think that the vision is, it can't happen, or, you know, it's not going to manifest because all of these external changes have actually gone on, and they're letting go of the vision that they had, whether it be to, you know, open a business, or, you know, like, I don't know, maybe vacation where they want or whatever, and they're letting go of the vision. So we're seeing an increase in things like drug abuse, alcohol abuse, all those things. You know, I've got some really good friends who work in the detox clinics here in the city, or social workers and whatnot, and they're seeing this uprising in things like substance abuse and things like that. So I'm expecting at some point that we're going to see a rise in negative paranormal experiences as well, unfortunately, because, you know, we're seeing this overarching pattern, you know, of people just slipping down the emotional scale for that reason. So the conclusion that we ended up coming to last night was to be able to say, ultimately what the goal is to be able to hold on to whatever vision that you had, and realize that it will manifest outside of trying to control the external circumstances. Because right now, I don't know what it's like in the States, but I know in Canada here, like especially in Alberta, small business is getting absolutely hammered and decimated by a lot of the rules that are being implemented at this point, and it's become very, very difficult for people to hang on to what they have. And the other problem with this, and the other problem with things like, you know, alcohol and substances and whatnot, is one of the things that it makes you do, which is crucial to have any sort of positive paranormal experience, is to be able to let go and surrender. So this is a really, really hard one for a lot of people, because whenever you're getting a situation where you have people patting down and trying to lock down what they have, immediately you start turning upstream, and you're clinging on to the breadcrumbs of whatever is there, where oftentimes the universe is trying to get you to move into this new state of being. It's trying to get you to move from this old place into this new place, and people have a tendency to want to just dig their nails in and want to hang on to whatever that is. And ultimately what's coming down the pipe is much better, but because we can't see it, we end up really clinging on to whatever this old thing was. And we see this with the paranormal. We see this with jobs. We see this with, it's just a habit that people have. So it's also another thing just to start to think about, you know, what is it that we are digging our nails into, or, you know, drinking to forget, or smoking to forget, or, you know, trying to induce some sort of experience with, you know, external things because, you know, we're trying to get back a relationship with someone who's passed over, or whatever it is. So I think there's a lot of things that we have to start considering that goes into, I think, why people turn and pick up things like substances and stuff like that to induce these experiences. There's plenty there. But you know, there's a lot of research, as I say, into things like DMT and whatnot, where, you know, people are discovering incredible benefits to things like that. But it's not in the use that we're talking about now. We're talking about people who are looking to mute whatever they've got going on without cleaning it up and doing the work. Because we have to, because if we don't, as I say, it's going to bleed into our experiences. I've had so many clients over the years who have gone into the research, or gone into what they believe is you know, interactions with some sort of an entity, and you know, the thing has backfired on them, and they can't figure out why. And it's simply because they haven't taken that stopper off the bottle in terms of, okay, well, wait a minute, what are we trying to bottle up? What emotions, what problems are we trying to stifle and then, you know, from that unstable platform, trying to move into the next experience. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. You're going to repeat it. It's going to bleed. It's going to do what it's going to do. So I found a really great passage that I wanted to read to you guys from The Power of Emotions. This is The Astonishing Power of Emotions. Really great book by Jerry and Esther Hicks. I want to read a little bit from this because I think it's so perfect for today. Alinda's saying life is like being a farmer. You have to work to make the progress. Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a great analogy, because the seeds that we sow, and you know, it's a very old saying, you know, you reap what you sow, but it really is true. And if your soil is toxic, if you've got toxic soil, you've got, you know, if you can plant all the seeds you want in there, it doesn't matter. That toxic land is not going to allow for growth. There's for those of you guys who have been to New Jersey, there's an area of New Jersey, of course, it's very famous for the Jersey Devil, called the Pine Barrens. And the Pine Barrens, the reason why it was called the Pine Barrens was because the soil was barren. It's full of pine trees, and the soil was barren, and it was just unfriendly to crops. Didn't matter what you planted there, it didn't matter what was going on. The soil just wasn't working. And you know, life is kind of like that, where, you know, if you've got soil that's not been tended to, the momentum in which you plant is usually the momentum that an energy that the event will carry through to the end. And I've watched this over and over and over again. If you've got something that has birthed its creation in fighting or arguing or drama, like unnecessary drama and whatnot, the energy in which something is incepted will ultimately carry throughout that thing, unless something is drastically done to shift it or change it. And hauntings are kind of the same way, where it's like, you know, if you start communication from a negative place, that is going to run right through the events, right to the end. And yeah, it's something to think about. You know, when the way you create, the way you put things into the world, and where it starts is usually indicative of the ending of whatever it is. I see this oftentimes with business partnerships. I see it with event planning, everything. If it starts out, you know, rocky or in chaos, it's going to end that way, like almost 100% of the time, unless, as I say, something is drastically done to change that vibration. So check this out. Check this out from this book. People try to affect a healing. They always turn upstream. They try to make something better happen. They turn upstream. They say, I'm going to set a goal. They turn and go upstream. Because there's something in the attitude of trying that always makes you turn against the current. It's something very different when you just let go. You call it surrendering. We don't call it giving up on your desires. You can't. Your desires are eternal. You cannot become less than you have become. You can't live life which causes you to ask for more and then say, never mind. You can't do that. You can continue to amend your desire, but you continue to expand, and your stream continues to go faster. And we love you very much, but you have no choice but to go with the flow if you're wanting to feel good. And I think it's just so on point. And you know, where people get turned around is ultimately they start to believe that that external experience, that alcohol, that substance, that, you know, whatever it is, you know, it's going to make them feel better. What they think is feeling better. If we look at you know, the emotional scale that we've talked about so many times, with depression on the bottom, you know, joy on the top, and all the emotions in the middle, is what often happens with people. And I see this, as I say, with my clients all the time, is where you get people who they feel a little bit better. They get themselves maybe from, let's say, from anger to contentment, or they get themselves from depression to anger, and they go back and forth between them, because they get themselves from depression to anger, and because they're angry they get back to depression, and then they want to feel a little bit better, so they get into anger because anger feels better than depression, and then they end up doing something like picking up alcohol or anything like that, and then they end up back in depression again. So they end up in this, it's a really, really nasty cycle, but it happens. It happens. And it's not something we have to beat ourselves up for. We just have to acknowledge it and realize what goes on. And when you're sort of stuck in that cycle and you're not able to let go, you're not able to surrender, and you're not sort of like giving up that battle of that trying over and over and over again, you end up in a problem. And say people that are dealing with these haunted locations, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. They come into the house, they're fearful coming into the house. They know something's going to happen, or they feel like something's going to happen. They get in there, and because they're in that energetic state, in that vibrational state, they attract the next thing that happens, and then they get freaked out and they get scared and they leave, and then they get, they get their courage back up. They start to feel a little better. They get back into the house. They have the expectation that something bad's going to happen. They attract another bad thing that happens. Then they're right back to the beating again. And they say, I told you it was going to happen again. And it did. And you get this really, really, really nasty cycle. And then it's very easy for people to start then looking at the external and going, how do I control this? How do I put these fires out? And it's a cycle that just doesn't work, but easy to get into when it feels like there's all of this stuff on the external that's asserting itself towards you. It's never the external. It's always going on from the inside out. It's really interesting. So I hope that was educational. There's so much more to talk about on these subjects because it is such a rabbit hole, but I think it does start to illuminate, I think, areas in our own experience where we can kind of catch ourselves. So what I love about the paranormal is that there's so many areas where you catch yourself and you go, wait a minute, this isn't just applicable to hauntings. This is real world. This is real world stuff. Fascinating. But we can't go anywhere today without some affirmations, because as I say, my heart goes out to those of you guys in Texas right now, and what's going on there, because Alberta, we're very used to the snow and the rain and the cold and the crap, and whatever. But Texas isn't built for that, and it's really difficult. And so my best wishes and all the positive vibes and love goes out to you guys. Because it makes things really, really hard. I know the animals are really struggling as well. And snow makes everything harder, let me tell you. So let's get some affirmations in here, you guys. Everybody just chill. Soak in all this information today, because there's been a lot. So everybody take a breath. I am a channel of peace and well-being, and my need for peace is abundantly met. I unconditionally accept, love, and appreciate myself and who I am. I recognize and am grateful for the abundance that is constantly flowing into my life, which I can choose to allow or not. I feel with every breath a sense of peace and love. I help others by maintaining and tending to my connection with Source as much as possible. This well-being is accessible to me, even in a sea of uncertainty. And in this moment, all is well. I am able to liberate myself from my past and live with peace and serenity. I can see and appreciate all the beauty and abundance of the life around me. I am able to accept love while letting go of fear. And I find peace with the soothing silence of my inner being. And everybody take a breath. Guys, I hope this was a good morning for everybody. Something to think about. If you guys want more info on the drug interactions and whatever with Psi research, go to the Psi Encyclopedia. So that's PSI Encyclopedia. It is an abundance of information, and it's an abundance of knowledge, and there's so many studies that are listed there. Really interesting stuff. And do check out the Gateway Project if you get a chance. The Gateway Project it's a really fascinating, and it talks about this interaction these really cool interactions with non-physical energies that were all so it was all documented and discussed by the CIA. Really cool, like super cool. So definitely check it out, you guys, and give you some reading for the next for the next week. Not light reading, but it's good reading anyway. So anyway, everybody, have an amazing week. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, it's youtube.com/entityseeker. And all the classes are there. Entityseeker.ca, of course, all the classes are there as well. And all the videos, there's some, I threw up some new, or so I guess they're older interviews, but I put them into the video section of entityseeker.ca. Yeah, it's really good. And Linda's asking if I could list the book I read from on the website. Yeah, absolutely. I will post the Astonishing Power of Emotions on the Entity Seeker Facebook page for you guys. And so if you want a copy, you can grab it. And the cool thing is, check this out. It actually comes with a CD as well, so you can listen to like the second half of the book or whatever on the CD, which is really, really neat because it's all channeled stuff. It's really cool. So everybody, and dancing, don't forget Snake and Pyre. You're right. So my fire stuff, you guys, I've got a new video that's going to be coming out here this coming month called My Little Bird with Michael Moriarty's music with my fire performing, and so snakeandpyre.com for all of my fire stuff. And there's the YouTube channel is up as well. So if you search for Snake and Pyre on YouTube, I'm pumping as much of the videos and whatever as I can there so that people can watch them because people are getting a kick out of it. So like that's great. That's perfect. I love it. So thank you, everybody. Thank you. This stuff could not be happening if it wasn't for you guys. So please keep sending in the questions, send in the information, whatever you guys want to talk about or know about. Email entityseeker@gmail.com with questions or whatever so that we can get this started. So I will see you guys next Wednesday at Spiritual Healthcare. And yeah, have a safe week, everybody. Bye.